Okay, so we are live with the Node.js package maintenance team meeting on the 28th of January 2020, and we will be following the agenda that's in the package maintenance issue 310. And the first item on the agenda is two-factor authentication for in CI. I'll just promote Dominic. And Michael, you?
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I'm late. No network in the office here.
Okay.
At least when I came.
We're live, and we just started looking at the first issue, two-factor authentication in CI. I don't know if you want to take it from here.
I know if you want to keep going. You?
Okay. Does anyone have any updates for this one? Oh, let me just share my screen again. The two-factor authentication in CI.
Yeah, so we have a link to the RFC from NPM.
Mm-hmm.
I read through that, and then the question is, when is the right time to discuss things? Because I know there's the RFC meetings, and there's, or should I just be leaving, and everybody else, should they just be leaving comments on the thing itself, or whether now is the right time?
In terms of, well, I think if there's something you think that would be good to discuss in this group, it's a good time.
So I think from this group's perspective, I will just need to update this pull request to include the new options and document the pros and cons. And I think then there's the implementation details, which is all up to NPM. So we may as well continue discussion there. I did leave a comment there on the issue asking when are the RFC meetings, but I couldn't find the calendar. So I don't know.
I can send you the link. Sorry about it.
If you could post that on the issue, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
I had it on my list to read when I saw it, but I haven't quite gotten to it. Any surprises or anything in it, or it's pretty much what you expected?
I think it's close to what we expected. Yes, I think it's a bit unclear what the MVP is, because it's talking about a package, but when they say a package, I think what they mean there is a tarball, as in a single version. So you would only be allowed a single tarball in staging essentially, and that sort of has implications for Semver and how do you do things there and how do you manage multiple ones, and yeah. And then there's the question of permissions. I think it is a bit unclear from the RFC how would that work, because at the moment you can enable 2FA for everything or for just authorization, and there is no more fine-grained control. And you would obviously need 2FA to publish things, to basically unstage things, whereas you would like to not use 2FA to stage a package, which is the whole point of having that, right? And it is a bit unclear from the RFC if and how that's going to happen, because that sort of implies a permissions model change. I mean, I don't know how the things work internally there, but these are the only two things that I had in my when I read through that.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like that's good. All good discussion to have in the RFC itself.
Okay, is that everything that needs to be discussed on that one for today? The next item on the agenda is the document the top 10 Express issues.
Right, we don't have Wes today, but I think you were talking with him a little bit. Is there anything to mention on that front?
He did list over an Express I don't know if I'll have the exact issue, but he did document the last 5 steps before Express 5 can be released, like his list of things to do. And some of those, I believe the PRs are reopen, and other things are just getting consensus and agreement to move some code around or get the actual code landed. So I think all the code work's actually done, but maybe we should follow up afterwards. I think they were aiming for January, but that may slip.
Okay.
There was also a mention of the Express status board, and I think there were a couple of issues in the board that I think he was hoping to advertise as good issues for people to jump in and fix.
Right. Can we open that and just, I don't know if you can easily find the link and show those?
I don't know where those issues are. I just remembered they were mentioned on the last call.
Okay. Okay, so I guess if anybody's interested and wants to get, it's probably best to follow up with Wes at this point to find those.
And the next item on the agenda was the next steps on support levels in the package JSON.
Right. I opened a PR just yesterday on that, but I thought we could take a look at that and see if we think it's enough or there's more that we need to do.
Okay. Is it linked in this issue?
It's in the minutes. I can add it to that issue, but it's in the minutes if you open them.
Last week's.
No, the minutes for this meeting.
Oh, okay.
I pasted it in underneath the.
Right.
I'm just in the meantime pasting it.
Okay. Is this the NPM funding?
Yep.
Okay.
So all I did was we had like a sponsored field, which I think overlapped with the funding field. So I removed that and I replaced it, if you scroll up just a little bit with, down a little bit, I guess, with the NPM funding. So with that description, the project is asking for funding and can be funded through the links provided in the funding field within the package JSON. And I wasn't sure if we needed anything more than that. I don't think the NPM funding covers off the other types that we had there in terms of saying, hey, you can be funded through a foundation or a project or. But
the current NPM implementation does support a type, but yeah, I think it's less than what is described here.
For these package support types, can a package have multiple of these? Because I can imagine NPM funding and bounty could both apply.
I believe the way we've written it, the answer should be yes.
Okay.
Let me double check that. If we go back to, sorry, I'm just going to open up the file itself. Right, it can be an array of URLs. It says the value can be, okay, so wait a sec. The value can be an array of URLs. So the section provides, it can be a single object or an array of objects, right? So yes, we can have multiple types, and then each type can actually have multiple URLs. So yeah, the answer to the question is yes.
Okay.
So I don't know what people think. Like, is that enough to address the integration, or do we think that, like, it's, you know, is there enough overlap with some of the other types that we should either remove them or just make the backing just the pointer to funding, or what do people think on that front? Doesn't sound like we have any strong thoughts at this point, so maybe we'll leave it to the GitHub repo comment in there, or +1 if you think it looks good, and hopefully we can get that landed and move on to the next step.
We have some notes in the chat.
Okay. I'm just reading them. So I guess I'll just read it out. Rory says, I have a suboptimal inward connection rate, but he'd like to raise awareness to the working group that they're starting to work on an RFC to add support to monorepos, workspaces, and NPM. If anyone has strong opinions about it, I'm currently collecting feedback through user story interviews, and we can schedule a follow-up meeting, or alternatively, just feel free to express your opinions here if we have the time. So anybody have any comments, questions on that?
I suppose a good starting point is open an issue.
That's what I was going to suggest as well. That way you can get people who couldn't make this time slot, because it's not good for some of the people on the West Coast, and gives people a bit of time to think as well if they want to comment afterwards. Anybody have any comments they want to share now, or?
I apologize, I was late to this meeting. I'm sorry if I have bad audio right now. I got stuck in transit here. I just wanted to maybe circle back on maybe some of the conversations that have already been had, at least on 282. I know that we opened up our RFC. I'm not sure if we already talked to that already. And then actually I have a follow-up maybe for 192 in terms of next steps for tooling around the support schema. So I'm not sure if we can start with maybe the first one again, just to maybe give me a brief synopsis. Not sure if I can provide any other details for 282.
I think we briefly discussed it, but there was the Dominicus was just asking where the link to the schedule was for the meeting.
That should be on npm.community. So if you go there, the calendar, our calendar, public events calendar should be accessible from that page. And then you can add it just like the Node Foundation or the OpenJS Foundation calendars, and our OpenRC bi-weekly meeting should be scheduled in that calendar, so you can follow along. It's usually bi-weekly. Okay, awesome. And we'll speak to that again in the next call as well, and hopefully that time works for folks that are here. Okay. In terms of the tooling aspect for maybe 192, I spoke briefly with Wes about this. I've reached out to the owner of create-pkg, which is an NPM package that currently doesn't have any usage. It's essentially name squatting. So we may go into essentially the dispute resolution essentially process with that individual within the next few weeks here. The reason why that package is of interest for me, and I think for Wes, is if most folks here know, when you run npm init, you can actually utilize templates. So any package that starts with the prefix create dash essentially gets utilized as a template within it. And so we're looking at the opportunity for us to own, or the package maintenance working group to essentially own the create-package, PKG package, so that we could maybe experiment with modernizing or making more verbose the init workflow for creating packages. So that might look like something like npm init PKG, which then would point obviously to some set of tooling that modernizes what gets generated in terms of the package JSON schema.
Okay.
So I think there's an opportunity there to like create something that's a little bit easier for the community to consume. So we're hopefully going to be able to get ownership there switched over and given to the PKGJS org. And then we can decide how we want to build, I guess, tools for that. So this might be a way forward for the support schema to start to land in a meaningful way. So.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. I'll take that down. The other thing we talked about just before you made it was I opened a PR which tries to integrate NPM funding, and it's 312. The main question was like, is that enough in terms of addressing the overlap, or do we need to be more go further? What I did is I just added to the backing field. I removed the sponsored, since I think that was the one that overlapped, and replaced it with NPM funding. As basically you can say, hey, we have no backing, we're a hobby, we're a bounty, or you could say NPM funding, which is just really, well, go look over there in the NPM funding field because the information is there. And so the question is like that reasonable, or is it that, well, it's going to overlap with a bunch of the other things too, so we need to take out more, make backing just a reference. I didn't do that just because some of the things didn't seem to overlap with that, but looking for people's thoughts on that one.
Sure. I'll probably have to think about that a little bit.
Okay. So yeah, if you can think about it, comment on the PR, that would be great. So I've added to the minutes, but yeah, Rai, if you opened an issue on that other one, that would be good. You might even want to tag it for the agenda next time, just in that we'll probably have a different set of people, so that would help to make sure they know it's happening too.
I think that was everything on the agenda for today. Is there anything else anyone wants to mention or discuss?
There was an issue about tooling CI2GM meeting. Did that go anywhere? Yes,
I created the issue to talk about like Citrus style tooling or how module authors test across LTS versions, etc. I don't think we got many response to the doodle very early on, so I'll set out a new doodle covering the next couple of weeks or so with a bit more time for people to respond in advance, and hopefully we'll get something set up. I think there was like 6 or 7 people interested, so we just need to create a new doodle. I can do that after the meeting. Is there anything else anyone wants to raise today?
Does it make sense to take a quick look at the issue board just to see if there's anything new, or? Since we seem to have a bit of time.
Do we use the projects, GitHub projects, or just the list?
We could look at the projects. That is, we did put that on the agenda to review those. Could look at the package maintenance roadmap. I'm not sure we've updated it recently, but So I think support levels, we've got, we want to work on the tooling a little, first land the whatever it is right to integrate with NPM funding, then do some work on the tooling before we start those blog posts. Security reporting, I think that actually can be closed because we landed that.
Just see what the latest update is in it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been merged.
Yeah, so I think this could be moved to closed. Marseille is now using that as the basis to make recommendations for the OpenJS Foundation. He's just doing some research in terms of, what projects already have in terms of security reporting, and then he's going to use that as the basis to say, okay, and here's what we recommend for member projects.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is something, we need to do some promotion now that we've landed it in terms of like, hey, here's another one of our best practices.
Okay.
But you can probably move it to, is there like a done?
I think if I just close it, it should move to done, I hope.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and close. Yep. We have this sitgem for a module dependence. We ran out of time to discuss this one last meeting. But there is a PR over in sitgem. Andrew's on the call. I don't know if I'll open the PR and maybe you can speak to it.
That's part of the topic for the tooling meeting too, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was one of the initial things we were looking at.
Okay, hi everyone. So the PR at the moment essentially just does an npm install into a directory, then runs an npm test using sitgem on all the installed dependents. It doesn't have tons of functionality at the moment. There's no test or documentation as it's work in progress, but I mainly post it on sitgem to try and get an idea of whether this was the right approach to go about testing a module's dependencies using sitgem, or if there was a better way of doing it.
Right, now this is dependencies. So what it depends on?
Yep, so
or what depends on it?
Any dependencies that are installed by doing an npm install will be tested by sitgem by running the sitgem deps.
Okay, because I think just off the top of my head, what we were looking for is kind of the opposite, right? Like you've got a new release of your package, you want to run the tests of the packages and apps that use you.
I think both have value.
Okay.
It's just slightly different concerns, but yeah. So this is about testing stuffs of the ecosystem in Node Canary. Canarying your own modules, yeah, I have that on my to-do list, so I'll get to it. I'll have at least an MVP at some point, but also because this is something that could be useful, at least parts of it could be useful for the client project that I'm currently working on. I might even get some funding to actually speed that up.
Sorry, which? Okay, the project. Yeah,
testing the dependencies of the dependence of your module rather than of Node itself.
And is this for like when you're upgrading the modules, or?
Yeah, so suppose you have a pull request in something like, I don't know, Express, and you want to see that plugins don't break or something, then you would have a way to basically run all the plugins with that version of Express.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. The plugin side makes total sense.
Okay. I think that will be discussed probably in more detail about when we've got the tooling kind of spin-off groups set up. Back to the board. I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to speak to. We've got a few blog posts in the to-do.
Yeah, nothing pops up as maybe looking at the issues just to see if there's any new issues or anything that's. All looks like the stuff we're talking about, so.
Okay. Sure. So is there anything else anyone wants to raise, or should I cut the meeting and give you 15, 20 minutes back?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks for joining, everyone. Speak to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.